Today, I'm excited to introduce someone who has already built an impressive and fast rising career in college compliance. Kayla Daniels, a proud alumni of York College in Pennsylvania, graduated from YCP in 2023 with a degree in sport management. During her time at York, she was actively involved across campus life, serving as a host for WVYC 88.1 FM, holding the role of vice president of the Sports Business Association and gaining hands-on athletic department experience as both a practicum event attendant and the women's basketball practicum supervisor. These roles helped build the foundation for her interest in NCAA rules and student athlete support. After graduation, Kayla began her compliance career at St. Francis University, where she advanced from assistant director to associate director of compliance and student athlete support services. Working directly with eligibility reviews, monitoring systems, rules in education gave her a deep understanding of how compliance functions on a day-to-day basis and how important ethical decision making is in the current landscape of college sports. Today, Kayla continues that work at a Power 5 level as Assistant Director of Compliance at Kansas State University, where she supports student athletes and athletic staff in navigating NCAA regulations, including the constantly evolving world of name, image, and likeness. And that brings us to why we are speaking with her today. As NIL continues to reshape college sports, questions about fairness, transparency, student athlete protection, and institutional responsibility have become major ethical focal points. Kayla's experience across multiple levels of compliance work make her an ideal person to help us explore the ethical challenges and considerations surrounding NIL in college athletics. I'm looking forward to hearing her insights and having thoughtful conversation about the role of ethics in modern NIL environments. My whole topic was just NIL and obviously the ethics, and obviously the compliance side of things. Um, so I kind of have like a table of contents that I have written down.
Mhm.
But before we get into that, I kind of want your opinions on the CSC, the participation agreement. Because I know, were you guys expecting that at all? Like, did you guys know that was coming? Um,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like anybody who was in the space, whether or not, you were a Power Four level or lower level Division One, like where I was before I was at K State, you knew something had to be put into place because the NCAA at this point in time can't just threaten, oh, we'll do something without any sort of backup from an entity outside of the NCAA. That's why they keep getting sued. So, honestly, not that much of a surprise on the CSC agreement. Probably the most surprising thing about that is the fact that at the Power Four level, all of General Counsel signed off on it, all the conference commissioners signed off on it. Suddenly it gets to all the presidents and chancellors that get signed off on it. And all of a sudden there are schools not signing the agreement. Their general counsel is suddenly saying, hey, don't sign off on this. And it's like, we all agreed on this.
yeah,
What's the issue? And it's, oh, you're not signing it because you want to try and get around the cap.
exactly.
So yeah, so it wasn't surprising that the agreement came together. It's just a little more surprising, not entirely surprising, but a little surprising that everybody seemed to have agreed on it.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden,
yeah,
there's some schools that decided they didn't want to sign it.
yeah,
There's some in our conference,
yeah.
Big 12, that are on that list. So
And I would assume there's no repercussions because no,
because it's
not
not
signing.
fully signed by everybody.
Yeah,
Yep, the CSC can't do anything. So, we in our office all the time, we have coaches coming in and saying, oh, so and so school promised this kid this much money and da 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 da. And it's like, we can go to this, like we call it the snitch line. Terrible name for it. But, there's somebody you can, report a school for
yeah,
something like that. But in terms of actual ramifications for the school, that's let's face it, it's cheating. There's no ramifications from the CSC because not everybody signed off on the agreement. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what are they gonna do now? Like, do you know at all? Like,
um,
are they gonna really force it down to be like, this isn't a participation anymore?
yeah, I mean, I can't tell you for sure what they're gonna do. I know our athletic director, he is very outspoken about the whole situation, and I think he had a meeting with either the general counsels of the Big 12 or the commissioner scheduled sometime shortly. Um, so at this point, there's just so much going on in college athletics that it's hard to, we have this to focus on, but also there's, every school is trying to figure out what their football staff is going to look like next year.
Yeah.
And, oh, here's this other thing,
Yeah. It's a
there's a lot
whirlwind.
going on right now. So it's a
Yeah.
lot for ADs and compliance to work with. So hopefully there'll be some more meetings and the needle kind of gets moved on
Hmm.
the CSC agreement. But
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
right now, we're kind of just stuck in limbo.
Yeah. I kind of went down the rabbit hole of reading all the opinions on it and everything like
Yeah.
that. So it was very interesting. It just kind of popped up
Hmm.
out of nowhere, I think. It,
For sure, for sure. And I think there's two different compliance is very interesting in that we're one of the few professions where we're in the business of making rules, and then we're also in the business of trying to get around them.
yeah.
Certain
Yeah.
institutions, compliance offices, not ours, but that's this the nature of compliance.
I know. Yeah. So,
There are two different, each school especially at the Power 4 level has you can go one of two ways with compliance. You can either follow the rules or try and find that gray area where
yep.
you aren't technically doing anything wrong,
Yeah.
but
It's a little fishy.
yeah, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
I 100% agree. I found that in a lot of the readings I did.
Mhm,
It's insane how much of the loopholes that they are able to just kind of leverage and everything like
mhm.
that. And it's very interesting to see how it's going to pan out.
For sure, for sure. And you know, it you just kind of wonder at what point is this finally gonna is the bubble gonna and you see this from news outlets all the time. It's like when is the bubble gonna crash, right?
Yeah,
With NIL, with the cap, with just the amount of spending on college athletes right now, and
yeah,
I think we've still probably got a little bit of time before that bubble
yeah,
eventually bursts.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I know that was very new. So I had
For
my prep
sure.
work all done, and
I appreciate that.
well, I gotta ask,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no.
so getting into kind of the beginning, I guess that I had before, I just kind of want kind of a foundation, from your
Mhm.
perspective. What is the core responsibility of a college compliance office in NIL today?
So, just basics, core responsibility of a compliance office is to make sure that our coaches, our university, our athletic department is following all NCAA rules, right? Just pretty simple. Making sure that any violations that we find, we self report.
Hmm.
Self policing, education is a big one, kind of going along with we want to make sure that our coaches are and our student athletes are following NCAA rules. We have to educate. I get 3 to 4 emails a week from the NCAA and our conference about interpretations or a new ed document about certain bylaws. So sending that out to coaches, student athletes, that kind of thing. And some of it isn't even new stuff. It's just every year we have to send a reminder, hey, you're in your championship segment, you have to either take off for civic engagement second Tuesday in November, or you have to, there's an exception for in season sports, but that kind of thing. So it's constantly educating. We have meetings with our coaches once a month, bringing up anything new, remind back when we did our October one, it was a lot about aid agreements, because coaches were getting ready to send those into our person who handles those, and financial aid here in the office. So it's a lot of education. I think that's I'd say probably 50% of the job of a compliance department is education of coaches, staff, student athletes. In terms of NIL, I would say that varies school by school, especially now. For NIL, so don't know if you found this in our research. We recently brought our it's called the Wildcat Collective, our
Yep.
NIL collective in-house.
Yeah.
So that is kind of more of a response to the fact that everything now has to go through NIL Go. It has to get approved. Anything over $600.
Yep.
Anything under $600, that just goes through Open Doors. For us, it could go through influencer, what's the other one? FanWord, any of those kind of things under $500. Over $600, which is the majority of the deals that you will see in the news, let's be honest. Those have to go through NIL Go. They have to which goes to this CSE. By bringing our NIL collective, because I'm going to use this because collectives aren't really a thing anymore. By bringing that in-house, it just makes it so we have a little bit of an easier time with our student athletes, getting them deals that we know are actual pure NIL deals, not there has to be valid business purpose is what is the term.
Yeah.
So making sure that our NIL deals for our student athletes actually are a valid business purpose, and it's not just people wanting to throw money at the kids, like you'll see reported other places. Those are the ones that get popped up on ESPN, not so and so athlete at K-State is advertising the local taco place. That's not going to make ESPN headlines, but. So by bringing our collective in-house, it just helps us make sure that the deals are actually legitimate before we even put them into NIL Go. So I think for our specific compliance department, that's a big responsibility in terms of NIL for us, and just making sure, maybe they have a third-party deal that they're bringing in that they got legitimately, just making sure that they're going through the NIL Go process and submitting all of the correct documents and making sure that it passes through. So my boss, Chris, he's our main NIL Go contact for our student athletes. So, they'll come in and be, hey, my deal didn't go through. And, maybe it's just they forgot to submit part of a contract, or they worded something weirdly, little things like that. So big responsibility for the compliance office.
Yeah, I was reading some of those reports when I was going down when that CSC thing came out, the participation agreement, and it was very, very informing. I was like, wow, it seems like making the deals and having NIL Go definitely helps, just kind of ethically speaking, it helps make sure that every deal is business fair and everything like that. So I guess kind of building off of your day to day, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have day to day? Like, could just be, obviously the NIL Go didn't approve of the deal or something like that. I mean, what are some of those challenges that you face every day?
So the biggest one right now, couple weeks ago, about a month or two ago, the NCAA put out some new emergency legislation regarding NIL Go. In that, once it expanded all the way to high school PSAs, JUCO kids, four-year transfers, and our own student athletes. If we compliance learns of a NIL deal that they have not yet put in NIL Go. We have, I think it's 2 business days, 48 hours, um, to talk to them, make sure that they get the deal put in NIL Go, or we have to render them ineligible from competition and practice. So that is definitely a big monitoring issue, just because if the kid doesn't put it in NIL Go and we don't know, and that we don't see, obviously, like, we have eyes and ears. We can see when student athletes post stuff on their social media. It's like, well, that's not an NIL Go,
Yeah.
but that kind of thing. We have that responsibility now to inform them, make sure they get it. Luckily, it is only, you have to put it in NIL Go. Um, it's not, in order to get their eligibility back, it's not necessarily a, oh, it has to be approved. But that coming out, that legislation coming out, is definitely a big shift. Puts a lot more responsibility on the institution, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can obviously be abused with, and
Yeah.
schools who may have a student athlete who has a giant publicized deal. The other thing about NIL Go is we cannot see other schools' deals. We can only see our own stuff. So, coach comes up to us, hey, so and so, gave this kid $40 million, whatever. We can't be like, oh, well, it's an NIL Go and it got approved. We have no clue.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a challenge that we face pretty much anytime we go talk to some of our coaches. But it's a monitoring piece day to day, making sure that, hey, so and so's football student athlete saw you had this, you posted this deal. If you're going to earn over $600 for it, please make sure you come put it in NIL Go. If you need help, come and see us.
Yeah.
And just sending that out to any incoming JUCO transfers, 4-year transfers, high school PSAs, especially with the mid-year period coming up. We probably have 20 to 30 mid-years coming in, that will send that education out to them of,
Okay.
hey, we got to get you signed up for this. Put any deals that you received, which, a couple years ago, high school students getting an NIL deal is super crazy to think about, but it happens. So
Yeah.
it's definitely just a monitoring and an education piece on the day-to-day basis.
So you mainly see that with transfers, I would assume,
Um,
or is
Not
it
necessarily.
it's across the board?
Yeah. So just, current student athletes, returners, and the incoming kids, you just want to continuing education. That's
Yeah.
a big piece of compliance on the day to day too. Is,
Yeah.
we are lucky here. We use Teamworks and ARMS, so we're able to send out messages as soon as we type them to kids. It gets, as long as they have the app on their phone, they'll get a notification. Hey, so and so sent you a message, and they can look at it and
Yeah.
move on with their day. So,
Nice. All right. Um, so with kind of the balance, I guess the rules and everything with NIL, how do you kind of balance the strict ruling, especially with NIL Go, with having that 2-day grace period of them having to get it in, and obviously student athletes juggling academics and their sport, especially at a big time school like Kansas State?
yeah, it's honestly, with everything that's going on in college athletics and inside of our compliance office, the NIL piece. So we also have someone who handles her specific. She's a very long title. I do not remember it. It's, her name's Julio, and she's great. She handles all of our cap revenue sharing stuff. So that definitely, that not being on the on compliance's plate is so helpful. And you see a lot of Power Four schools doing that, or even just putting someone in NIL specifically. So for us, we don't, like I said, my boss handles NIL specifically, but honestly, I gotta say, our kids are good about putting that stuff in. At the beginning of the year, we had a couple of kids who had issues putting their information in, bank account wrong, that kind of thing, standard
Yeah.
stuff. But across, I've been here for 5 months, as from the start of this school year, and we really haven't had a ton of issues with kids not putting their stuff in. We just have really good group of kids, honestly. And
Yeah.
I know that's like seems like a cop out answer, but it really is true. And we also like I said, I think we over educate our coaches, which is a good thing because
Yeah.
we can tell them, hey, so here's the new legislation. Your student athletes, if they don't, they're going to be rendered ineligible. Oh, here's a school in our conference who just rendered a track kid ineligible because
Yeah.
they didn't put a deal in and they had to sit out of this competition. So
Yeah.
giving them that example of like it's actually happening, and
Hmm.
we're going to self-police that. We're not going to let it go. And they know that.
Yeah.
So I think putting that expectation into um, the coaches' minds is also helpful.
Yeah.
So the compliance is a great career because you never know what's going to come through that door. Um, you know, Today alone, I have had uh, reimbursement paperwork. We've had a recruit come in. I've approved 2 official visits. You never know what you're gonna do. So it's kind of handling everything in a compliance workspace is just knowing to pivot when you need to and take priority. So obviously, if a student athlete came in here right now and said, I didn't put in my thing. Okay, we're gonna help you put that in now. So
Of course.
yeah.
So, I mean, you talked about obviously talking to the coaches and informing them. Um, so do you hear a lot of these things happening when you use those examples? Obviously,
Yes,
especially in the conference, I would assume.
yes. We always, I mean, somehow the Big 12 always has an example for something. But that's the nature of Power Four. I'm sure Big Ten,
Yeah.
SEC, they do the same thing. But I'm gonna be honest, it definitely depends on the coach. Which ones decide to be like, hey, I know this school's doing this. How comes they haven't, and we have to explain, well, we can't see, you can call the snitch line if you want, but that's about as much as we can do right now. I know it's frustrating. Um, but we're going to keep doing things the right way because who knows, the CSE agreement might come through and they might retroactively come after all these schools.
Yeah.
Not sure if they would do that, but that's always a possibility, right? So we want to make sure our coaches are continuing it. Sometimes we have to tell coaches just because somebody else is getting around in the gray area doesn't mean we're going to. So it's definitely a struggle to keep some of our coaches, and I'm not going to name names, but some of our coaches are very passionate about their sport, and obviously all coaches want to win. So
Yeah.
it definitely depends on the coach. We have some coaches where they're just not that they don't care, but they're not going to come in here and raise hell about it.
Yeah.
We have other coaches that any chance to talk to us and bring it up, they're going to be like, oh, I saw so and so do this. And it's like, we know. I don't know what you want us to do about it. We can report them if you want. So
Yeah. That I feel like it's honestly it's probably tough for them to see all those
for sure.
leverages being used and you guys are sticking to the book. So,
For sure.
but
For sure. And
obviously it's a safe play depending on what the CSC is going to do in the future. Who knows? We could see a lot of programs get
yeah.
cut out from under them and
Yeah.
blindsided by
And
something like that.
and kind of go along with that, like our AD Gene Taylor, he's great guy. He fully believes in like, yes, we have revenue sharing. Yes, we have our NIL in house, but we're going to do this the right way. He's
Yeah.
very, very outspoken about it, um, which I love. I love a school that follows the rule book and
Yeah.
uh, considers compliance to be a valuable asset and not necessarily a deterrent or. a
Yeah.
detriment to an athletics department. So
Yeah.
going, not only are we doing this just to, you know, the CYA reason, it's also just that's the culture of our department
Yeah.
and what our AD is comfortable with us doing.
Of
So
course. So moving on here. Um, when a deal comes in for a student athlete and the offer seems kind of too good to be true, what are kind of the red flags that you guys may have seen? Any kind of examples that you have before deciding whether it's compliant and appropriate?
definitely it's just going to be what is the nature, why, the amount. It's the again another kind of thing is what is a valid business purpose and the going rate for whatever. So obviously, like, don't want to pit our student athletes against each other, but if Avery Johnson's autograph, our our starting quarterback, is going for this much, it's probably not going to be the same amount for Maddie Sibbing, our women's soccer goalie's autograph. That's
Yeah.
just business,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but if you want to compare Avery Johnson to Texas Tech's quarterback. Okay, well maybe they'll be a little more comparable. Probably not because they're in the college playoffs. But his might be worth a little bit more if we're being
Yeah.
honest. But it'll be around the same. So if we
Yeah.
see a number that's just way out of the park, doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, what's going on here? Making the valid business purpose is this kid just can't show up and stand somewhere and you pay him $20,000.
Yeah.
That's
No.
not what is this kid doing for you? Is it, is he we have a pretty long standing NIL deal with a local car dealership. So okay, this kid is, he's posting with this Mustang that the
Yeah.
car dealership gave him, and he gets to drive it around. And there's a post on his Instagram, and there's, a giant sticker on the back of the car that says where it came from. Okay, valid business purpose. We got
Yeah.
it. Again, it just stuff like that, where, and again, it's just a really weird space. So you see a lot of different stuff come through, but we just have to make sure it's not hey, I'm going to pay you $30,000 to just show up, not meet anybody, not do anything, just stand. Like that's,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
hey, here's $30,000 if you score this many points. Like that's
Yeah.
not a valid
Yeah.
business purpose. That is not a
No.
true NIL deal. We're not going to approve, like NIL Go is not going to approve anything like that. So honestly, not that our collective was doing anything like that before, but bringing it in house, like at the end of the day, they were essentially a third party marketing agency for our student athletes. Now, bringing that in house, we're able to set our student athletes up with deals that make a little bit more sense for them and for we've got a great community, a very supportive community here. So, stone's throw away, you're going to see one of our student athletes somewhere around town. So it's not like there's a shortage.
Yeah.
I know that could probably be for certain schools, maybe an issue of, oh, well, we just don't have enough high value donors or we don't have enough
Mm.
local businesses that want to support. Okay, you still can't pay kids $10,000 to throw for 2,000 yards or whatever,
Yeah.
like
No.
still can't do that. So everything coming through our department just helps us. If we ever found anything that was um looked suspicious, our my boss Chris, he would work through that with the student athlete, and
Yeah.
I have no reservations that he would tell the student athlete um that's not going to get passed through NIL Go. You need to go back and renegotiate this to be something. You need to actually do something in order to gain this money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. For sure.
I,
I mean,
yeah, I have no reservations knowing that he would tell them that.
so how many incentivized deals have you seen? Have they come through a lot, or
Um,
are they kind of here and there?
they're very here and there. Like I said, like we literally my grocery store where I go shop at I can't go 2 feet without seeing Avery Johnson's face. I'm gonna be honest. Like, um, that kid does a lot of NIL deals, and it's all for, you know,
Yeah.
here's me promoting a big one. He's all over every case of Dr. Pepper in this town.
Wow.
So yeah, there's a giant cardboard cutout of him by the tower of Dr. Pepper. So we honestly are very lucky that we have a lot of local businesses and
Oh
national
yeah.
businesses that want to work with our student athletes. And this is very different from the last place I worked. We have very high profile student athletes here.
Yeah.
So for them, it's a lot easier to get those deals. And, we have student athletes who do here's my link for liquid IV, 20%
Yeah.
off if you use my
Yep.
code, very like basic.
Hmm.
I almost want to say influencer-esque type of
Yeah.
deals where
Yeah.
like, while yes, you're getting it and you can get it because you're a student athlete and that's your pool, an influencer can use their pool for the same thing, which is nice that there's kind of like a commission-based one. I feel like those always go through pretty simply because
Yeah.
it's very, I'm advertising for you, I get a kickback.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. So
Are there
there's
are there
definitely the range, but
yeah. Are there any like kind of those, commission-based deals that are like, no, like this
the
is not gonna pass?
I mean, so that I'd have to look at our NIL policy again, but I'm gonna imagine anything that has to do with gambling,
Oh yeah.
alcohol,
Yeah.
drugs. Well, I'll say the gambling one is maybe sports gambling specifically because Avery Johnson is in a ad for the Kansas State Lottery. So
What?
maybe specifically sports gambling. Like I said, I have to look at it again. But probably something specific like that is going to
Yeah.
be like an automatic. And that varies by state and school too. I know
Hmm.
my last school that I worked at was a Catholic school in Western Pennsylvania, and we were very much no gambling, no drugs, no illicit materials, no alcohol. You can't
Yeah.
advertise anything like that, and that was due to Pennsylvania law. If the Pennsylvania law didn't exist, I'm sure same thing would apply, but it was also part of Pennsylvania law, so varies by states too, which is another big
Yeah.
part of that
Yeah.
of the NIL piece that is just frustrating for compliance pieces.
I can imagine that as well. Well, I'm pretty sure that the participation agreement didn't it kind of void a lot of state law in it,
Depends on
or
if the school signed it or not.
that I'm saying if like
Yeah,
if all the schools signed it, it would have been a little bit different in
yeah,
how the state laws kind of worked. I remember
for
reading
sure.
that, but
For sure.
obviously didn't happen. So
Yeah.
we
Yep.
we would never really know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so um, so obviously you talked a lot about education. So how do you ensure student athletes understand the ethical side of NIL, such as avoiding exploitation, protecting their long-term interests, and making choices that align with their values? What is
Yep.
kind of like, I guess, the
Mhm.
education, the breakdown of it all?
So compliance end, ours is a lot of rule-based stuff. I'm gonna
Yeah,
be honest. It's a lot of you have to do this, you can't do this. This is how you do this. This is how you get it into NIL Go. Da 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 da. That kind of thing. On the other end of the spectrum in terms of financial literacy and making sure, hey, you have to put money away for taxes and that
yeah,
kind of thing, we have this terrific student athlete development team over there right across from me in my office. They're great. There's three of them in there, and they host different workshops along with, usually it's along with academics, like a tutoring session.
yeah,
um, on that kind of stuff. So it doesn't necessarily, that piece doesn't fall on compliance, but due to NCAA rules, we do have to provide that for our student athletes. Um, so we handle that under a different department, but still obviously close. We work
yeah,
together on that kind of
yeah,
stuff. Usually it's at the beginning and the end of the year, we do a big combined meeting where we talk, academics talks, and then student development talks about that, about a whole bunch of things, but it does get NIL, that kind of stuff does get brought up. But in terms of like the monthly, weekly, daily education for in terms of financial literacy, that kind of stuff, that all is housed under student athlete development.
Okay. So you guys work close together, but kind of not really under you in
Close
a
together, but different. Talk about
yeah,
different stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So have you ever encountered any cases where a deal seems close to like pay for play? I know we talked about too good to be true
Yeah.
and the
Um,
incentives and everything like that. So
I personally haven't. I'm sure my boss has under, he's been here a lot longer than I have. Like I said, I've only been here for 5 months, but I haven't seen anything come through um like that. And again, like at the end of the day, our collective was really good before we brought them in house. So,
yeah, yeah.
if there was one, it might have been a one-off situation. So
Have you heard of any that have happened
for
recently?
sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Don't want to name up. I will
Don't have
say
to.
this obviously, like the news would like to be, they focus obviously on like the football, basketball a
Yeah,
lot more. Um, but it's definitely starting to affect the Olympic sports, track particularly. Um, see a lot of stuff in the track space, and the only
yeah,
reason I know that is because I work track is one of the sports I work with. So see a lot of stuff in that space, not only just football, basketballs, but track too. And
yeah,
when it starts creeping into the Olympic sports, okay, we got to get a handle on this. This is really starting to be a problem.
yeah.
So definitely seen it more in the track space than.
I haven't, I followed track because I ran track at York.
Okay,
Um,
gotcha.
so I feel like I would have seen something about it. I haven't seen
It's
anything.
it's very between coaches too.
Oh,
I will
okay.
say it's very, oh, this coach saw that, heard from this coach that this school is doing this, and it's like, well, how can that school do that? And it's, I don't know. So
I will say
it's,
track is kind of a small world with all the
y-
coaches and everything. So
mhm,
I can imagine word spreads like wildfire.
yeah.
Um, so
And at this, it's interesting. I had never experienced this at my last school, but at this level, you have coaches who are also training Olympic athletes on the side. Like our coach,
yeah,
Travis, he trains the Woodalls, if you know them.
yeah, I think, yeah,
Tara, and her husband. So it's very different too to see, because he's coming from a background of, yes, he's a college coach, but he also trains Olympic athletes, so
yeah.
lines kind of get blurred sometimes. But
So yeah, I can definitely see the track and Olympics being kind of a problem here soon.
yeah, yeah. um I mean, at the end of the day, there's specific rules for, if a student athlete goes to the Olympics and national team stuff and all the things like that. But as long as they're putting their sponsorships in NIL Go and they're getting approved, not an issue.
Yeah, of course. So what are the processes you follow to evaluate, intent, fairness, and potential competitive impact when dealing with NIL?
So a lot of it, so a lot, honestly, a lot of it on the compliance end is done through NIL Go. They determine the rate, the going rate for stuff. They determine what is considered fair in terms of the market, which obviously, fair has a lot of different meanings, especially when it comes to ethics. So for us, it's just making sure that our student athletes, the contract, we don't look through the contracts, but it's definitely making sure to tell our student athletes, hey, make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. Look over the contract, don't just sign it. Read through the entire thing. Um, Seems like every kid has an NIL agent nowadays. So
Yeah.
having one of those helps. Also making, I'm sorry if you hear screaming. I share a wall with the football locker room. Um, so they're in there. But making sure that their agents aren't going to take advantage of them, and all these kinds of things that you have to go through.
Yeah.
It's honestly, like I said, a lot of it is under NIL go for us. We're just kind of funneling the kids to what the NCAA deems is this is what we're going to do in terms of NIL. Um, but we can only do so much education at the end of the day.
Does Wildcat Go have anything to do with looking over any of the contracts, or are they just kind
They
of
were just kind of, like I said, they were like a third party, kind of like the best way to describe what a collective did, because there really isn't any anymore, is they're like a third party marketing agency. So
yeah,
just getting our student athletes' names out there,
yeah,
and trying to find people who are willing to provide our student athletes with a deal.
yeah. So
So
they're going out and looking for the deals for the athletes. Okay.
correct, yes, and
Um,
yeah, they did a great job.
yeah. I mean,
We
now having them in-house definitely
so much
helps.
easier.
I
Yeah, well,
mean,
not
it's
easier, but yeah, for sure.
brings a lot of
It
opportunity, I would presume.
yeah, and it just makes everything a lot less messy on the back end.
Yeah.
Kind of takes out the middleman.
Yeah.
So
And are how many other schools have brought something like that in-house?
a
Because
lot of them are starting to, at
really,
least at this level,
yeah,
at the P4 level, because once revenue sharing became a thing, they just kind not that they became obsolete, it just didn't make much sense.
yeah,
When the school can help the student athlete get an NIL deal or bring, whatever, it just doesn't make sense to have a collective anymore,
yeah,
really. And the donors, they are still more than willing to donate their money and their time to our student athletes, just in terms of making sure that everything is in the straight and narrow. It
yeah,
helps a lot with that. um, However, third party NIL deals are still an issue across the board. That's how you want to see how a lot of the schools are getting around the cap. That
yeah,
is how.
yeah,
So there's still definitely an issue, but at least if they're bringing their collectives in house, the school is trying to just make NIL more efficient,
hmm
um, and make sure that the deals aren't going to fall through for the
yeah,
student athletes, because
yeah.
that would just not look good on the collective or the school if
No,
they are putting up deals that aren't going through NIL Go, because they are essentially pay for play. So,
yeah, yeah. So I kind of got like a conflict of interest thing. Like, what are the restrictions you have in place to uphold, obviously, the integrity of the university? Um,
so one thing that's interesting about here is technically athletics is a separate entity from the school. I have two email addresses. I have my .edu email, and then I have my K-State sports email. So that's something that's, and this is obviously my first Power Four job, so I don't know if that's common across all Power Four schools or not. That is not how it was at my old school, that I worked at. But so we're kind of a separate entity from the school. Obviously, we still fall into the school and we talk, we work with them. We don't have our own financial aid or
yeah,
applications or anything like that. So we work with them, but technically we're a separate entity. So I think that helps, um, us to be able to do a lot of the things
yeah,
that we do. I think that's probably the best safeguard. And we have, general counsel, our our lawyer for the department. His name's Aaron. He's great. So we have him. He has an office upstairs near our AD's office. So having him on board definitely helps too. So,
Uh,
if a situation
yeah,
arises, go talk to Aaron, go talk to Gene, see what we're going to do about it, kind of thing.
yeah.
So having him like here, he's here every day like us. Um, so that also helps.
I would assume that a lot of schools also have that,
Yes.
um, because it's definitely makes it a great safeguard,
Hmm. For
especially
sure.
with where we're heading. Um,
For sure. For sure.
so, and now you know what? And future and outlook. So, how is the compliance rule going to evolve? What are your opinions? What do you think is going to happen over the next, 5 years?
Yeah.
I know the
Um,
CSC and everything like that. It's only going to get, you know, cracked down on more of the
yeah, I
the gray
think
area.
honestly, so for compliance and college athletics in general, the two probably main things. Obviously the CSE agreement that needs to get signed by every school. We need to find a way to get that passed through all of the schools, whether we can't really alter it because that is what came out of the House settlement. That is what the judge signed off on. So at this point, it's just convincing the other schools to play by the rule. I'm not really sure that people who are paid a lot more than me have to figure out how to get that
Yeah.
through. But also the SCORE Act. That's obviously a big point of contention that was going to get brought up to the House last week, and then it didn't. Which obviously to want to bring something up like the SCORE Act, which in the House right now is kind of seems a little silly to a lot of the outside world, and it is like, let's be honest here. But at the same time, it definitely would help the NCAA get some of its teeth back and
Hmm.
help with a lot of these lawsuits that are still ongoing. There's one right now, the Patterson case, that could have definitely a big impact on compliance within the upcoming years. That is a 5 for 5 ruling right now. It's just Vandy football student athletes. So we'll see. That is I think that is going to get heard the tomorrow, the 12th. Yeah. So we'll
Okay.
see if some sort of injunction comes through for that.
Sure.
That would mean everybody has 5 seasons of eligibility for their 5-year clock. That would, and that goes back starting fall of 2022 for student athletes. So there's a lot of student athletes who exhausted their eligibility this year. That if it expands to all student athletes, not just football student athletes, we could have a whole lot more student athletes sticking around. So that case and cases like that, which I'm sure more will pop up, are definitely going to be sticking around until the NCAA can get some teeth behind it.
Yeah.
Um,
Would you think like a national standardization would help resolve, or do you think it would create new ethical issues?
I think my personal thing is I think no matter what the NCAA does, if they do not have an antitrust exemption, they're just going to keep getting sued. It because that's just the reality of the fact that student athletes want to stay in college longer because they can make more money than if they know they're not good enough to go pro, but they're good enough to start,
Yeah.
or they just don't want to go pro because who wants to make so many million on a rookie contract when you can make this many more million staying in college. So
Yeah.
I the other thing that's kind of throwing the compliance world out of whack is just the waiver situation back before the House kind of got settled. They were giving out waivers like candy. I'm gonna be honest. I had waivers that I put in that I was like, there's no way this is gonna get pushed through. This kid's not gonna get another year. the student athlete got another year of eligibility. And it's just like, okay, but now they're at the point where we have some stock, we have some teeth, we can stop just giving out all these waivers for whatever reason. I think we had 3 denied this summer, which obviously is unfortunate for the coaching staff and the student
Yeah.
athlete, but that's just where the NCAA is at right now. And compliance is so, and college athletics is so constantly evolving that
Yeah.
I don't even think we could standardize anything, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
There's new stuff that comes out every week.
Yeah.
It's, a lot of my bosses like to say, you used to be able to just pick up the manual and go to the rule, and that's the rule. But now you go to the manual, you go to LSDBI, you look at if there's any ed columns or previously approved waivers, and it's a lot. So
Yeah.
to look at.
There's a big gray area now, and it's just it almost seems like it's expanding somehow.
It really is.
I
It's
mean,
the
it's
compliance
only gonna
bubble
yeah.
was this,
eh,
and now
yeah,
we
it's
handle all of this stuff, and at the same time, a lot of stuff before NIL happened, the NCAA was going through a lot of deregulation,
yeah.
so it's a lot.
Yeah.
But it's, you just come in every day and you try and do the best you can and try and do what's best for your student athletes and and the school, and make sure you're following the rules, and just, you know yeah, you just got to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you know I can very, very adamantly say that here at Kansas State, we take compliance very seriously. We're not a school. No, there are Power Four schools that like to brush it off, don't care. It's, there are some schools that don't even call their departments compliance, it's risk management.
That's
Texas, that's what they call it, risk management,
wow.
which in of itself is a little odd.
Yeah.
But to each their own. But here, I'm just very thankful that we do generally try to do our best and follow the rules and make sure that our student athletes are taken care of and know what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Risk management is very interesting to say the least. It almost seems
Yeah,
like they're trying to put out that they're leveraging loopholes and
for
trying to
sure.
put fires out if they do
Yeah,
happen.
it's it's definitely a very interesting title, and it says a lot more about them than they think it does.
Yeah.
I would
Um,
agree.
I can't imagine that that looks good in any way.
The SEC just does things differently. I'm gonna be honest. And my boss worked at his first job out of grad school was Mississippi State, so
Yeah.
he kind of knows a little bit of that. But yeah, that's the thing too, is conference by conference, school by school. There's so much differing attitudes towards compliance that
Yeah.
it's hard to manage it all, for sure.
Yeah, it makes it more difficult to even put set in stone things to even
Hmm.
try and minimize the gray area at all.
For
Um,
sure. For
so
sure.
so last question, obviously gonna have to get your advice.
Yeah.
What would be your advice for a student athlete navigating a NIL, choosing deals, protecting themselves, and aligning their personal values?
That's a very good question. I'd say one, go talk to your compliance office. Make sure you're
Yeah.
an NIL go. Make sure your bank account information is correct, because we cannot help you if you put the wrong PayPal account. That gets really
Yeah.
messy really quickly. Not
Yeah.
talking from experience. Um, so make sure go talk to your compliance office. Make sure you have everything correct when you put it in. Make sure you're including all of the information and paperwork when you're putting a deal in. If something seems weird, go to your compliance office, or your coach, somebody you trust, sport admin. But go to your compliance office. Keep yourself safe. I would just say, again, if it looks too good to be true, uh, you need to talk to someone about that because it's definitely not as good as it seems. Anything where they want something in perpetuity, not good. You definitely should stay away from stuff like that. And just honestly checking out their credentials. If it's an agent, an NIL agent, or marketplace, something like that, check out their credentials, make sure they're legit. There's a lot of scams on the internet right now
Mm.
for student athletes, for people who want to get into the NIL space, and it's just another excuse to take student athletes' money.
Yeah.
Um, and don't share passwords with people. I feel like that's an easy one. Don't
Yeah.
you with your mom, your dog. I don't care. You never. Money makes people do funny things.
Yeah.
Um, honestly, it's very like seems like very internet safety type of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
simple common sense stuff, but it's a good reminder. It's just if it seems like pay for play, go talk to your compliance office. We're here to help. We're not scary. I promise. We don't bite. Nobody has bit anybody in any compliance office I've ever been in. We're
Maybe
no
the risk
compliance people aren't
management.
scary. We're not mean. Just because we
Yeah.
told your coach he can't recruit that kid from wherever does not mean we're mean. So
Maybe in the risk management department.
yeah, they might bite people. I don't know. Haven't been
Uh,
in one.
Now, would you advise students to get an NIL agent? Do you guys advise your student athletes at all about, or I guess that comes more with an educational piece as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely more of a just check out their credentials type of thing. We don't like to advise our student athletes. That's very much a CYA of us because, if the student athlete gets into trouble, we don't want to be responsible for it. So from a compliance end, we are definitely more of a you can have one. This is what they're allowed to do. They're not allowed to, negotiate for you on in terms of like a pro contract.
yeah,
Can't do that. They can be an NIL agent for NIL only. That is fine, but we don't advise them whether to get one or not.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and
Yeah, of
joining me.
course.
I think the discussion went very well and it was very informational. So thank you again.
Yeah, no problem.
To conclude today's episode, we had an in-depth conversation with Kayla Daniels, Assistant Director of Compliance, about name, image, and likeness, and the ethical regulatory challenges surrounding it. Throughout the interview, we discussed the CSC Participation Agreement, why its introduction was expected, and how the lack of universal adoption has left college athletics in a temporary state of uncertainty. Our guests also explained the day-to-day responsibilities of a compliance office, including education, self-reporting, and monitoring NIL activity to ensure institutions, coaches, and student athletes are following NCAA rules. One key takeaway from the interview is that education is the foundation of compliance, especially in the NIL era. Compliance offices spend a significant amount of time educating coaches and student athletes on new legislation, reporting requirements, and policy updates to prevent violations before they occur. A second takeaway is the difficulty of monitoring and enforcing NIL rules fairly, particularly when schools can only see their own NIL Go data and not know what other institutions might be doing. This creates frustration for coaches and compliance staff, especially when programs attempt to operate in gray areas. Third takeaway is the importance of a valid business purpose in NIL deals. Our guests emphasized that the deal must reflect legitimate marketing value and cannot be tied to athletic performance, incentives, or unrealistic compensation, while also complying with school and state specific restrictions on industries such as gambling, alcohol, and drugs. We would like to thank Kayla for taking the time to share their experience and provide an honest look into the realities of NIL compliance in college athletics. We also want to thank our audience for listening and supporting the podcast.
We hope this conversation helped shed light on how NIL works behind the scenes and why ethics and compliance are critical to the future of college sports.